3 miles under the Pacific, a silent, hulking behemoth lay in total darkness. It was a Soviet submarine, the K-129, a 2,000-ton vessel packed not just with nuclear missiles and top-secret cipher machines, but also with the bodies of 98 sailors. Moscow had long since written it off, a tragic casualty of the deep. But Washington, Washington knew precisely where it was, and they had a plan. A plan so outlandish, so audacious, it would eventually cost the modern equivalent of $5 billion. It involved a reclusive billionaire, a ship with a belly large enough to swallow a submarine whole, and a giant claw nicknamed Clementine. This isn't just a story. It's the unbelievable high-stakes saga of how the CIA attempted to steal an entire Soviet submarine from the ocean floor, right under the nose of the Cold War enemy, without anyone ever knowing. Or so they hoped. The year was 1968, a time when the Cold War was anything but cold beneath the waves. In March of that year, the Soviet ballistic missile submarine K-129, a Gulf-class boat, slipped away from its base on the Kamchatka Peninsula. Its mission was a routine deterrent patrol, a strategic flex of Soviet naval power in the vast expanse of the Pacific. On board, it carried 3 SSN-4 nuclear missiles, each capable of delivering a devastating payload, along with stacks of cryptographic manuals, the very keys to Soviet naval communications. 4 days into its patrol, however, a chilling silence descended. All radio traffic from the K-129 ceased. Just like that, it was gone. The Soviet Pacific Fleet, a formidable force, launched what would become the largest maritime search of the Cold War. Aircraft scoured the endless blue, trawlers dragged their nets, and destroyers crisscrossed the Pacific, their sonar pinging fruitlessly into the depths. But they found nothing. Absolutely nothing. Soviet naval intelligence, after weeks of desperate searching, reluctantly concluded the worst: an onboard explosion, perhaps an accident with one of its nuclear missiles, had sent the K-129 to its watery grave. They gave the crew up for lost, a tragic but not uncommon fate for submariners in the unforgiving Cold War era. For Moscow, the K-129 was merely a ghost in the deep. What the Soviets didn't know, however, was that the United States had quietly, meticulously woven a vast, secret web across the ocean floor. This was the Sound Surveillance System, or SOSUS, a network of underwater listening posts designed to track Soviet submarines. Imagine an invisible tripwire, constantly listening, constantly analyzing the faint whispers and sudden roars of the deep. It was this network that picked up a burst of acoustic data, a telltale signature of a massive explosion, roughly 1,500 miles northwest of Hawaii. This wasn't just any explosion. It was the K-129. Naval intelligence, recognizing the unparalleled opportunity, didn't make a sound. They quietly fed the precise coordinates of the wreck to a highly specialized submarine, the USS Halibut. The Halibut wasn't your average attack sub. It was a Cold War marvel modified with advanced deep-sea photographic equipment. It slipped into the area, a silent hunter in the abyss, and began its grim task. Using an experimental camera sled, it systematically photographed the wreck, its powerful lights piercing the eternal darkness. What those cameras revealed stunned analysts back in Washington. The sub had indeed imploded, a catastrophic failure of its hull under immense pressure. But here's the kicker. The forward 130-foot section, the prize section containing the nuclear missiles, and, crucially, the code safes, was lying remarkably intact at a staggering 16,500 feet. One admiral reportedly simply muttered, "That's a gold mine sitting down there." And he wasn't wrong. It was a gold mine of intelligence, a treasure trove waiting to be plundered, if only they could reach it. The idea of recovering anything from such an extreme depth was, frankly, preposterous. Before 1968, the deepest successful salvage operation had barely breached 1,000 feet. We're talking about trying to snatch something from over 3 miles down, a depth where the pressure is so immense it would crush a human body instantly, where light never penetrates, and where the cold is absolute. It was an engineering challenge on a scale never before contemplated, let alone attempted. Yet the potential intelligence haul was simply too tantalizing to ignore. Nuclear warheads, their firing circuits, the cryptographic machines that held the secrets of Soviet naval communications. This wasn't just a win, this was a game-changer for the Cold War. So, in the summer of 1969, a year after the K-129 vanished, the CIA's Deputy Director for Science and Technology convened a small clandestine group. Their meeting place was a nondescript basement office in Langley, appropriately nicknamed the Black Chamber. These weren't your average bureaucrats. These were some of the brightest, most innovative minds in clandestine operations and engineering. Their mandate was clear, if seemingly impossible. Figure out how to raise a 1,750-ton section of a Soviet submarine from 3 miles down, and do it without the Soviets, or anyone else for that matter, ever finding out. Talk about a tall order. The engineers, fueled by caffeine and the sheer audacity of the task, sketched out concept after concept. They brainstormed, debated, and discarded ideas that ranged from the merely difficult to the utterly insane. Option 1. Send down divers with torches and cut the sub apart piecemeal. This was quickly dismissed. At 16,500 feet, deep-sea divers were a fantasy, not a reality. The technology simply didn't exist, and the human body couldn't withstand the pressure. Impossible. Option 2. Flood the forward section with buoyant foam and somehow float it up to the surface. This idea, while creative, was technically laughable. How do you inject enough foam at that depth? How do you control the ascent? The risks of it breaking apart or simply failing were astronomical. It was a non-starter. Then came option 3, the one that seemed to defy all logic, yet held a glimmer of possibility. Build a custom ship, a leviathan of the seas, equipped with a giant mechanical claw. Lower this claw on a steel pipe, a pipe so long and so thick it would be an engineering marvel in itself, down to the ocean floor. Grab the submarine and then slowly, meticulously haul it up inside the vessel, completely out of sight. They called this monumental undertaking Project Azorian. Most insiders, however, simply called it the Monster Claw. It was a plan born of desperation, genius, and a healthy dose of Cold War paranoia. Now, executing Project Azorian was one thing. Keeping it secret was another challenge entirely. In the age of spy satellites, hiding a 618-foot ship, a ship unlike any other ever built, was going to require more than just a tarp. It needed a cover story so plausible, so utterly believable, that even the most suspicious Soviet intelligence analyst would simply shrug and move on. The CIA needed a frontman, a name that resonated with cutting-edge ocean engineering to the public, but also eccentric recluse to the press. Enter Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes was a legend, a billionaire industrialist, film producer, aviation pioneer, and, by the 1970s, a notorious recluse whose every move, or lack thereof, was fodder for tabloids. His name was synonymous with grand, ambitious, and often bizarre projects. He was the perfect eccentric genius to front such a wild endeavor. The agency approached his holding company, Summa Corporation, with a proposition. Hughes, through his company, would pretend to bankroll a deep-sea mining venture. The target? Manganese nodules, potato-sized rocks rich in valuable metals like nickel, copper, and cobalt, which litter the abyssal plains of the ocean. This wasn't some far-fetched fantasy. Deep-sea mining was a real, emerging academic and industrial interest at the time. The cover dovetailed perfectly with genuine scientific and commercial pursuits, giving the future vessel a perfectly legitimate, even pioneering reason to sail the Pacific and lower enormous pipe strings into the deep without raising a single eyebrow. Hughes, who hadn't given a press interview in over a decade, surprisingly signed on. His price? A slice of stock options in the supposed mining venture and, more importantly, absolute ironclad secrecy. For Hughes, a man obsessed with privacy, this was a mission he could truly embrace. Overnight, press releases, carefully crafted by the CIA, heralded the arrival of the Hughes Glomar Explorer, a revolutionary ship poised to vacuum up billions in undersea minerals. The media, ever eager for a captivating story, absolutely lapped it up. Trade magazines ran glowing features. Even Soviet naval attachés, diligently clipping stories from Western newspapers, filed routine reports back to Moscow. American billionaire building massive deep-sea mining ship. Nothing suspicious. The ruse was alive, thriving, and remarkably effective. No one suspected that beneath the veneer of commercial innovation lay one of the most audacious spy missions in history. With the cover firmly in place, the real work began. In 1971, at Sun Shipbuilding in Pennsylvania, the keel of an unprecedented vessel was quietly laid. This wasn't just a ship. It was a floating, self-contained deep-sea recovery platform, a marvel of Cold War engineering. The hull had to be colossal, longer than 2 football fields, stretching an imposing 618 feet. Its most distinctive feature was a cavernous central bay, a massive opening running through the ship's hull, which engineers ingeniously dubbed the moon pool. This moon pool was open to the sea below, a revolutionary design that would allow the colossal pipe strings and eventually the submarine section itself to pass directly through the vessel, completely shielded from prying eyes and satellite surveillance. But merely getting a massive ship to the right location wasn't enough. It had to stay there with pinpoint accuracy even in the unpredictable currents of the deep Pacific. This required a new level of precision. Engineers installed computer-controlled thrusters strategically placed around the hull to keep the ship stationary within a mere 10 feet of its target point, even while dangling 3 miles of pipe in currents that could swing like a pendulum. At the heart of this intricate dance were powerful IBM mainframes, crunching sonar data every second, constantly adjusting the propellers of those thrusters. This sophisticated system was called dynamic positioning, a technology borrowed from offshore oil rigs, yes, but never before attempted on this scale or with this level of precision. It was the digital brain that kept the Glomar Explorer locked on its target. Below deck, the ship housed a German-built crane, an engineering marvel in itself, capable of hoisting a staggering 2,000 tons. But the true pièce de résistance, the star of the show, wasn't on the ship yet. It sat, disassembled and shrouded in secrecy, in an adjacent warehouse. This was the monster claw itself, a formidable steel structure, forged from chrome molybdenum alloy, a material chosen for its immense strength and resistance to the crushing pressures of the deep. It was assembled in segments, away from prying eyes, to avoid any undue publicity. The workers who toiled on this metallic leviathan, perhaps with a touch of gallows humor, nicknamed it Clementine, after the folk song about a miner's daughter. CIA officers, ever practical, simply called it the grabber. This was the tool that would reach into the abyss and attempt to snatch a piece of history. By early 1974, after years of meticulous planning and secret construction, the Hughes Glomar Explorer finally slipped out of Philadelphia. It moved under the watchful escort of tugs, a silent titan heading for the open ocean. On board, a carefully selected crew of 178 individuals had been cleared for the mission, though most were kept in the dark about its true purpose. Mingling among them were 60 CIA staff, expertly posing as oceanographers, maintaining the elaborate deep-sea mining cover story. The ship's ultimate destination, that was cloaked in even deeper secrecy. Only a handful of top officers, perhaps 10 in total, had the full operations order, locked away in secure safes. This wasn't just compartmentalization, it was an absolute necessity for an operation of this magnitude. Deep in the ship's hold, engineers began the painstaking process of spooling out 17,000 feet of 1-inch thick steel pipe. Each 40-foot segment was threaded together, one after another, like assembling a colossal mile-long straw. When fully deployed, this immense string of pipe would weigh an astonishing 4,000 tons. Naval architects had run the calculations, and the results were sobering. If the claw were to lose its grip on the submarine section, the sudden recoil of that massive weight could, theoretically, flip the entire vessel. It was a terrifying prospect, a constant nagging fear. Yet everyone involved, from the CIA chiefs to the engineers, agreed to proceed anyway. The intelligence prize was simply too great to abandon. The journey to the recovery site, a remote patch of the Pacific, took 18 days, and it wasn't without its drama. Along the way, the Glomar Explorer found itself shadowed by Soviet fishing trawlers, floating SIGINT, signals intelligence stations, constantly monitoring and recording. This was the Cold War cat-and-mouse game playing out in real time. The crew, however, was ready. They responded with their pre-agreed cover story, running elaborate drills simulating manganese nodule collection. They even went so far as to dump buckets of black ore over the side, a theatrical flourish designed to sell the act. The Soviets, observing from a distance, radioed headquarters. American miners testing new gear, nothing suspicious. The elaborate ruse, for the moment, was holding. The day arrived. On July 4, 1974, the Hughes Glomar Explorer halted its majestic progress, positioning itself precisely above the coordinates of the K-129 wreck. The stage was set for the most delicate and dangerous phase of Project Azorian. Crew members opened the massive moon pool doors, and, with a deep resonant rumble, seawater flooded the cavernous bay. Then, with a mixture of apprehension and anticipation, the engineers began the agonizingly slow process of lowering Clementine. The colossal claw descended at a mere foot per second, a glacial pace that meant the journey to the ocean floor would take a full 8 hours. Imagine the tension in the control room, the collective holding of breath. At 12,000 feet, the pipe string hit a snag, literally. A section twisted, threatening to kink the entire fragile line. In the control room, project managers watched in horror as strain gauges spiked wildly, like a seismograph during an earthquake. The entire mission hung by a thread. They slowed the descent to an agonizing crawl, working meticulously, inch by agonizing inch. After 90 tense minutes, a collective sigh of relief swept through the room as the gauges finally steadied. Clementine continued its downward journey, a silent predator in the crushing dark, until sonar painted the unmistakable silhouette of the K-129, lying on its starboard side, its torpedo tubes looming like empty, accusing eyes. The claw closed around the hull with unnerving precision, 209 feet aft of the sail, the exact spot where analysts had predicted the submarine's strongest frame would be. There was no room for error. Divers in deep-sea hardsuits, working at pressures that would instantly pulp a human body, weren't an option. This grab had to be perfect on the first try. Cameras mounted on Clementine fed grainy, ghostly footage to monitors back on the Glomar Explorer. On screen, metal creaked under immense pressure, sediment billowed like a ghostly cloud, and then a profound silence as the claw locked. The grab was made. The lift began. For 2 agonizing days, the winches hauled, the steel pipe groaning under the unimaginable strain. The recovered section, a precious 40 feet of the bow, containing 2 missile tubes and, critically, the code room, began its slow, deliberate ascent toward the surface. Every foot gained was a triumph against the crushing weight of the ocean. Then, at a depth of 5,200 feet, disaster struck. A single steel finger on Clementine, one of the massive claws designed to cradle the submarine, fractured. Engineers on board heard a sharp metallic ping that echoed up the immense pipe like a rifle shot. Within seconds, 2 more fingers sheared off. It was a catastrophic failure. 2/3 of the submarine section, the vast majority of the prize, lurched downward, trailing a comet tail of debris as it plunged back into the abyss, destined for a second, permanent resting place. In the mission control trailer, a stunned silence descended, broken only by a hushed whisper, a chilling confirmation of failure. "We just lost her." The dream of recovering the entire K-129, along with its full complement of nuclear missiles and cryptographic secrets, had just evaporated. What remained dangling, a cruel fragment of their ambition, was the forward 38 feet of the submarine. This smaller section, though a fraction of the original target, still held valuable intelligence, torpedoes, 1 missile tube, and critically, the cryptographic safe. The CIA would later estimate that the intelligence haul from this partial recovery filled 45 cardboard boxes. Inside, they found codebooks, waterlogged and fragile, but recoverable. They also recovered torpedo guidance sets, offering insights into Soviet weapon technology. And perhaps most poignantly, they found the bodies of 6 Soviet sailors, remarkably preserved by the near-freezing temperatures of the deep ocean. The rest of the K-129, including its 2 remaining nuclear missiles, plunged back into the abyss, forever lost, forever out of reach. Despite the immense disappointment of the partial recovery, there was a solemn duty to be performed. Protocol, even in the clandestine world of espionage, demanded respect for the dead. The recovered sailors, victims of a Cold War tragedy, were treated with dignity. Their bodies were carefully placed in metal coffins. In a poignant, almost surreal gesture, these coffins were then draped with Soviet naval ensigns, painstakingly sewn by the Glomar Explorer's laundry crew. A Russian speaker on board recorded a short Orthodox prayer, a final benediction for the lost. At dawn, on a calm Pacific morning, under a sky untouched by the previous day's drama, the coffins slid silently into the sea. A bugler played both the Soviet and American anthems, a haunting melody carried on the ocean breeze, marking a moment of shared humanity amidst the geopolitical chess game. Only a handful of CIA officers watched this profoundly moving yet entirely secret ceremony. The event itself remains classified to this day, a testament to the layers of secrecy surrounding Project Azorian. However, footage of this unique burial was later handed to Moscow in 1992, a powerful gesture of goodwill in the post-Cold War era, offering a measure of closure to a long-held mystery. Back in Washington, the real work of intelligence analysis began. The recovered code books, fragile and soaked in seawater, were carefully dried in vacuum chambers. Analysts painstakingly peeled the pages apart, revealing secrets that had been submerged for years. What they discovered was significant. Cipher settings that would have been current for another 6 months, enough to read a crucial slice of Soviet naval traffic. This was invaluable, offering a rare window into enemy communications. Engineers, meanwhile, disassembled the R-21 missile engine, meticulously examining every component. Their findings revealed that Soviet solid-fuel technology, while formidable, lagged years behind American designs. The intelligence haul, while not the jackpot initially dreamed of, was far from empty. It provided critical insights, confirming suspicions, and offering tangible evidence of Soviet capabilities and limitations. For years, the vast operation of Project Azorian remained one of the best-kept secrets of the Cold War. But secrets, especially those of such monumental scale, have a way of finding their way into the light. In 1975, the dam finally broke. Investigative columnist Jack Anderson, a relentless and fearless journalist known for breaking major stories, stood up at a Washington press club and dropped a bombshell. His words echoed through the room and soon across the nation. The CIA has been running a sea-going swindle involving Howard Hughes and a sunken Russian submarine. Anderson hadn't just guessed. He had obtained a meticulously detailed 20-page briefing memo, pilfered during a break-in at Summa Corporation, Hughes's holding company. The story, once it broke, rocketed across front pages worldwide, igniting a media firestorm. Congress, blindsided and outraged by the clandestine nature of the operation, demanded immediate hearings. CIA Director William Colby found himself in an impossible dilemma. Confirming the story would expose future operations, potentially compromising countless other sensitive missions and intelligence assets. Denying it, however, would risk him being called a liar under oath, a career-ending blow. It was in this crucible that Colby coined what would become one of the most ubiquitous phrases in government parlance: "We can neither confirm nor deny." The Soviet Union, through its ambassador Anatoly Dobrynin, filed a formal protest, seething with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. They knew, or at least strongly suspected, that the Americans had indeed tried to salvage their submarine, but without photos, without hard, undeniable evidence that could stand up in court or public opinion, Moscow could only fume in diplomatic frustration. They couldn't prove it, and the U.S. wasn't about to help them. The Hughes Glomar Explorer, its cover blown and its mission incomplete, was quietly laid up. It was later sold to a drilling contractor, its days as a spy ship over. Clementine, the monster claw that had reached into the abyss, was cut into scrap, its segments scattered in warehouses. Project Azorian, the most ambitious intelligence operation of its time, vanished into bureaucratic fog, becoming a whispered legend of the Cold War. Project Azorian was, without a doubt, one of the most expensive and complex intelligence operations ever conceived. The mission cost an astonishing $800 million in 1974 dollars, a sum so vast it exceeded the entire budget for the Apollo 14 lunar program. Think about that for a moment. The cost of trying to steal a submarine from the ocean floor was more than sending humans to the moon and back. It was an astronomical investment, a testament to the perceived value of the K-129 secrets. Yet, despite its partial success and the eventual exposure, the legacy of Project Azorian extends far beyond the realm of espionage. The technological spin-offs from this audacious project revolutionized deep-sea industry. The dynamic positioning system, perfected to keep the Glomar Explorer stationary over the K-129, became standard on oil rigs worldwide, enabling precision drilling in challenging offshore environments. The moon pool concept, designed to discreetly bring the submarine section inside the ship, now underpins today's advanced drill ships, allowing for safer and more efficient subsea operations. The very idea of deep-sea mining, once a plausible cover story, saw significant advancements thanks to the engineering feats required for Azorian. And then there's the legal doctrine. The phrase, "neither confirm nor deny," born from Director Colby's desperate attempt to protect operational secrecy, is now a staple of the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, law enforcement. Every time a government spokesperson utters those 5 familiar words, the ghost of K-129 stirs, a subtle reminder of the lengths governments will go to protect their secrets and the ingenious ways they've learned to do it. While declassified documents occasionally dribble out, slowly revealing more pieces of the puzzle, many remain sealed, locked away until 2039, perpetuating the mystery. To this day, treasure hunters still scour the vast Pacific, dreaming of finding the section that got away, hoping to unearth the K-129's remaining secrets. Experts, however, largely agree that any remaining missiles would have corroded into harmless titanium slag decades ago, their nuclear threat long neutralized by the unforgiving ocean. The CIA, for its part, maintains a quiet, powerful reminder of the mission in its private museum at Langley. There, displayed for a select few, is a single artifact, a bent finger of Clementine, twisted and broken during that fateful lift. It's a silent, humble testament to the day America tried to steal a submarine from 3 miles down and almost pulled it off.